Now let us start. I finished up to nonlinear inequalities last session. I posted the video, by the way, in Canvas already. You can just see the icon there, the left of the file. Kita natin ah. Right, when you go to Canvas, okay, under Module 1 folder, you'll see this icon here, which means it's a link to a video. This icon, like a paperclip, means it's a PDF file. So here you'll find linear and nonlinear inequalities, our uh, synchronous discussion, recorded synchronous discussion. So you can review the things we've discussed there. If there are some you did not understand, or if you were absent, at least you'll be able to study, okay, synchronously the discussion, whatever topic was discussed there. Now I've added actually here some exercises on polynomial and rational inequalities. Last semester, our style was, or our format was, actually it still is the format, supposed to be the format for Math 21 this semester, where, well, it depends on the teacher, but some teachers actually do not teach the lessons. They assign the students to study them asynchronously, and then come class time, they are expected to have read those, and the teacher will just be doing exercises in the book. That's what I did last semester. The good thing with that is that we had time to discuss very or hard and sometimes very hard exercises. But the what they call this, the disadvantage of that is that um, we cannot, or the students might have difficulty understanding the concepts and the lessons as well, and thus perhaps the exercises, because there's no synchronous class discussion of the lesson. So from time to time, it depends on the circumstances. I might just assign or post videos in advance, and that means if they are posted in advance, we won't, there is no need for me, I'm not obligated to discuss them again synchronously, so that I can spend more time, especially if we have lack of time. I can spend more time answering exercises. But usually I'll be discussing first the concepts, the lessons, and then just review just before the quiz. Okay, perhaps spend a session or two if we have still time, okay, before the schedule of the quiz, to just review quickly. Okay, and that means sometimes it may be done haphazardly, or just to help you prepare for the long test. So ito, halimbawa, no, ito yung click nyo lang ito, and then you just click it again. It will forward you to the video in YouTube. So ito yung diniscuss natin naman nung nakaraan. Ayan. The orientation, I think I already asked the bidder to send it in the GC. The link provided actually will expire. You have 13 days. Pero orientation lang naman yon. After 13 days, Zoom will delete the video. Now, sometimes I won't be posting the synchronous sessions here because it might take some time to really download and upload again. So, pag sakali, baka yung link na lang sa Zoom, kasi nire-record ko to sa Zoom Cloud, hindi sa computer ko, mas matagal kapag sa computer eh. Pag Zoom Cloud kasi, after 5 minutes, Zoom will send you the link which you can share. You just have to give the passcode. And if that is so, I will ask the bidder again to just forward it. Do you have already a class GC, I assume, di ba? Kasi, ano yan. Okay, so let's go to a new lesson. So we now go to inequalities involving absolute value. So we had linear inequalities, nonlinear inequalities. Now inequalities that have the absolute value function, okay, in their expressions. So first, we need to review the definition of the absolute value of a real number. Now, you may in words say that the absolute value of a real number is the number regardless of the sign. So the question is, why do you disregard the sign? What actually is the what they call this primary meaning? Okay, actually it's a geometric one. Okay, what is the primary meaning of the absolute value of a real number? Anyone? I look at those who recite in the chat box. First 3 or 5, I usually look at their last names. And katagalan nag-ano sa akin yun. Nagre-register permanently. And then when computation of the final grade comes, sometimes minsan binibigyan ko ng consideration kung 2 points na lang halimbawa, kailangan niya ng 300 points tapos 298 siya, sometimes nakakatulong din yun. Although hindi walang grade ang participation at hindi chine-check yun. Yes, that's correct. The distance of the integer from 0. So that's distance, meaning you're just interested in measuring how long is the point or how far is the point from the origin. So that's the sign does not matter if you're only interested in the distance of the integer. So by obtaining, you disregard the sign. So sometimes it is defined, the absolute value of a real number is defined as the number regardless of the sign. But actually, it's not the definition. It's the way you obtain the value of the absolute value. But more precisely or formally, we use a piecewise function or split function to define the real number, or sorry, the absolute value of a real number x, as shown there in the screen. So we define it to be, okay, we use this symbol to denote an absolute value of a real number x. Already know that. So it's defined to be x, meaning itself, if the number is non-negative or greater than or equal to 0. It's defined to be the absolute value of x is defined to be the negative of x if x is less than 0, or the negative of itself when it is negative, itself when it's non-negative. So let's illustrate the use of the definition. So using the definition, how do you get the absolute value 4? Since 4, the one inside the absolute value, is positive, So the absolute value of 4 is itself. Now, the absolute value of -4 is the negative of itself because -4 is negative. So the negative of a negative is still positive though. So whatever or however, whatever number you put there, you will always come up with a positive value. The sign is not really disregarded. Actually, it's always positive in value, if not zero. Geometrically, again, it's the distance of the number from the origin. So look at 4 and -4. They are at the same distance, counting the number of units from 0. Thus, they have the same absolute value of 4. So with that, we can now go to solving first, bago yung inequalities muna involving the absolute value. Solve this one here. Absolute value of 3x plus 2 equals 7. So if the absolute value of a number is 7, there are only two possibilities, right? Either it's 7 or it is -7. So let's consider each. Case 1, the number is 7, which is 3x plus 2 inside. And we solve that as a linear equation without an absolute value. So you know already how to do that. Transpose, divide by 3, the coefficient of x. You get x equals 5/3. Now the other case is if it's -7, again solving, you get another solution, -3. And thus for your solution set, you just include all the possible answers. So we have that in set notation. Use curly brackets and write down the solutions in any order. The order does not matter. So the set containing -3 and 5/. Any question? Let's proceed. Now let's make it a little more complicated. So what if we have two expressions containing an absolute value? How do we count the number of cases here? How many cases will we have since there's an absolute value on the left and on the right as well? 2 cases, somebody answered 4. It seems at the first that there's 4 cases since 2 times 2 is 4, right? The left-hand side can be positive or negative, the right-hand side can be positive or negative. But actually, they can be reduced to just 2. Let me just explain why. Okay, halimbawa tingnan natin dito sa kunyari lang ano, iba yung suppose you're asked to solve this equation. It involves an absolute value and okay, hindi na kailangan to. Kunyari lang ano, in general, one side contains an absolute value of an expression containing x, and so does the other side. Well, absolute value of a can be either a or -8, diba? So is absolute value of b can be itself or the negative of itself, so that you have a maximum number of 4 cases. So one, a could be absolute value of a can be a. So absolute value of b can be either b or negative b, right? So one case would be a equals b, another case would be a equals -b, and then you take -a for this, and then you pair, pwedeng yung -a mo is b, and then yung -a mo is -b. So it seems that there are 4 cases, but actually some are equivalent cases. So notice here that if I just multiply by -1, I get the same as this case. Similarly here, if I multiply this one by negative or this one, you get the other. So ending with just really two cases. So let's proceed to solving. Okay. So solving, we consider the two cases. First case, let's just consider the case where the expressions inside are equal to each other. And then the second case will be the one is the negative of the other. So case 1, they are equal, yung nasa loob pareho. Solving, of course, you distribute the 3, so you get 15 plus 6x. Combine the x's, heading left-hand side, and then transpose the constants to the other side. You get negative 7x equals 14. Divide by negative 7, you get -2 for case 1. In case 2, one is the negative of the other. Either this one is the negative of this, or you can write this one is the negative of this. Either will do. Let's just take the left-hand side to be the negative of the right-hand side. Okay. And similarly, solving, we get a unique value. You can verify after expansion, and in the usual process of solving a linear equation, get -16/5, just as we did with case 1. So again, we get two solutions, and we write the solution set as follows. The set containing -2, -16/5. Is there any question? Now, sometimes you can have an absolute value inside an absolute value, in which case you might end up with 4 cases. That depends. Okay. But forget about the expression inside and just think of the outermost absolute value here. Think of the one inside as some expression, say E. Let's call it E, capital E here. So this becomes the absolute value of E equals 7, di ba? So either E, the expression is 7, or E, the expression is -7. So we have two cases. Then we will have sub-cases. Case 1, the expression inside is 7. It's this one. Case 2, negative lang naman natin to. Solving case 1 first. Transposition gives absolute value of 4 minus 3x equals 1. And again, you have two cases. So you can call them sub-cases. Either 4 minus 3x is 1 or -1, which we will solve simultaneously, editing separately. Okay. So transposition gives 1 and then -4, -3. And then -1 minus 4, -5. Para hindi magkamali, do it separately. And then divide by -3, we get 1 or 5/3 for case 1. 2 solutions for case 1 this time. And then the case with the other one is the same. I mean the process, except that we have -7 on the right. Same thing. We solve, we get two sub-cases supposedly. Pero itong case na ito has no sub-case. In fact, it has no solution. Why? By the way, I obtained -13 by after transposing -6 here. Now, why is it that there's no solution to this equation? Baka mag-positive -13 ka, gayahin mo ito, di ba? Nag-positive -1. Mali na yon. Why? Dahil po sa -13, Sir Jerome, tawag dito, ah, clarify. Ano ibig sabihin mo doon?
Sir, ang naalala ko po sa dating pre-cal po namin, kapag po nagsasolve po ng absolute value, yung y po hindi po siya pwedeng maging negative po.
Yeah. Because the absolute value is always non-negative.
Opo.
Yes, positive or zero, at least zero. You're equating a positive or a non-negative to a negative. That cannot be. No matter what real value you put here, it can never become negative because by definition, absolute value is distance. So we say no solution. We can just draw the empty set here. You're presenting your solution, draw the empty set to indicate that there's no solution to this case. Again, since the absolute value is always non-negative, there's no solution. And thus the solution set contains only two, again, only two answers. 1, 5/3. If there's no question, I will proceed. Now, we will have linear or inequalities now containing or involving absolute value. Linear, okay? So in order to solve such, we need the following theorem, okay? Which allows us to convert an inequality of this type or of this type to an equivalent form or statement. So let's look at the first one. Take note that the number on the right is positive because if it's negative, there will be no solution or the solution will be all real numbers. But anyway, supposing B is a positive number, how do you convert or solve this one, okay, this inequality here? You have to convert it first to an equivalent form which has no absolute value. So you can just quickly give the solution to the inequality as this. So if absolute value of x is less than b, then x is between negative b and b. But if absolute value of x is greater than the real number, positive to, then it is outside negative b and b. Okay, so that means less than negative b ang x or x is greater than b. It's inside the interval negative b to b if you have a less than. It's outside the interval if you have a greater than. So by the way, we could have put the equality symbol and give the same statement, but we have to also add the equality symbol, okay, on the other side of the statement. Okay, absolute value, para mas makuha natin, illustration muna. Absolute value of x is less than 10. What do you want here? You want the distance of the number from 0 to be at most 10. So where should your number lie? Hindi pwedeng lumagpas ng 10 yung distance niya sa 0. So obviously, the number should be between negative 10 and 10. That's the first case or first type, less than. So between negative 10 and 10. Or we just write, okay, x should be in that interval, open interval, from negative 10 to 10, open because this is a strict inequality. It will be a closed interval if the equality was included here. Now, absolute value of x is greater than or equal to 3. Type 2, greater than. So it should be outside negative 3 to 3. And to write that, okay, it's either to the left of negative 3 or to the right of positive 3, but not inside negative 3. Or in interval form, your x should be in the interval negative infinity, negative 3, or the interval 3 to infinity, including the endpoints. Is there any question how I converted these two statements involving absolute value to one that does not involve absolute value? You can memorize the theorem here if you want, but you can just take note that it's only inside if it's a less than. It's outside if it's a greater. To the left of the negative one, to the right of the positive one, it's a greater than. So with that, we can solve a linear inequality involving the absolute value. Solve absolute value of negative 7x plus 5 is less than 19. Now, this is type 1, less than. So you know the expression has to be between negative 19 and 19. So it's greater than negative 19, but less than positive 19. Now you can solve this separately, but you can also solve it simultaneously by doing the same operations on all sides of the inequality. So first, you subtract 5 from all sides. So subtract 5, this becomes negative 24. Subtract 5, 14 na lang. Nawala na yung 5 sa gitna. Then divide negative 7, okay? All sides yan. So that means you have to reverse. Tama? The senses of the inequalities. So reversing, dividing by negative 7, take note, a negative becomes a positive when dividing, and a positive becomes a negative. But you also have to reverse the direction. So this means that x must be greater than negative 2, but less than 24 over 7. Again, it's inside. Inside to, dapat, pag finalize mo, inside pa rin siya. So it's inside negative 2, that single open interval, negative 2 to 24 over 7. That's already done. Any question on this? Let's consider the other type where you have a greater than or greater than or equal to. So this time it's outside negative 24 to 24. So it's to the left of the negative, to the right of the positive. Case 1, to the left of the negative. Just a linear inequality now. Solving. You have that. I hope you can follow with the discussion. If I'm too fast, pwede ko naman bagalan pa. Sometimes, kapag nagawa ko na, maybe hindi ko na masyadong dinidetail out, lalo na kung simple lang. Okay? Like this one. And then case 2, greater than the positive, 24. Equal. Same thing, add 9, divide by 11. You have that. And then since this is greater than or equal, so outside siya dun sa negative 24, 24, dapat outside din. So that means you have a union of intervals for this particular inequality. Here. So this one, less than or equal to negative 15 over 11 using set notation, set of all x such that x is less than or equal to negative 15 over 11, or x is greater than or equal to 3. In interval notation, you have a union of two intervals, negative infinity to negative 15 over 11 closed, union 3 closed, positive infinity. Any question? Now let's combine. Okay. What if we have a two-sided inequality and it involves an absolute value? So medyo magiging complicated na. In fact, you have two types here, a combination of the first and the second type. One is a greater than, the other is a less than. So let's consider the left-hand side of the inequality, which is 4 less than or equal to absolute value of x minus 12, or equivalently, absolute value of x minus 12 is greater than or equal to 4. So it's not really type 1. You might think this is type 1 because of the less than. No. The function has to be on the left-hand side first. The constant has to be on the right-hand side. And then you look at the sense of the inequality. It's greater than, so type 2. So the solution consists of all numbers outside -4 and 4. All values of x minus 12. We have this. X minus 12 is less than or equal to -4, or x minus 12 is greater than or equal to 4. Again, using type 2, the theorem, second one. Solving, dali lang naman at 12. You get those. X is less than or equal to 8, or x is greater than or equal to 16. That means, okay, mamaya na lang natin pakita lahat-lahat. So let's leave it in inequality form. The other is the right-hand side of the inequality. Absolute value of x minus 12 is less than 16. So it's type 1. And so it's between -16 and 16. Just add 12 simultaneously. Get that. X is between -4 and 28. Now, you're not done yet. You do not just conclude, okay, those are the answers. No. These are two cases. And so we must get the union or the intersection. Mag-union ba ako dahil pagsamahin ko na lang? Ganun ba yun? Why do you have to reverse the equation? Okay. Kasi ano ba? Ngayon ko na lang nabasa, no? Pero why did we reverse? So, halimbawa, 2 is less than absolute value of x. Pagpalitin ko tong dalawa, diba? Pag nag-switch sides ako, siyempre, dahil nag-switch na lang sides, kailangan kong i-reverse yung inequality. Kasi mas malaki yung x, di ba? Parang ganito. 3 is greater than 2. So if I switch the sides, I also have to reverse the inequality for it to still be correct. So that's what we did with case 1. Balik tayo doon. Ayan, sa case 1. Dito. Ito yung left-hand side. 4 is less than, so binaliktad lang natin. Nag-switch sides tayo, pero para pareho sila, equivalent sila, i-reverse natin yung direction ng inequality. Now, back to my question, should we take the union of the two answers? Ito yung answer natin sa case 1. This is the answer for case 2. Union, intersection. Paulit po yung case 1. Malayo na yata ito. Tama ba? Backtrace tayo. Or is it clear to you already? Okay na. So should we get the union or the intersection? Ngayon, dalawa kasi yung side. And do you have to satisfy both or just one? Okay nga. When you write it this way, do you mean you want to satisfy both or just one? Anybody listening at all? Talang yata nagpa-participate. Is Giyab? Just one? Just one? Yung left-hand side lang ba ang kailangan maging true? Tapos kahit false na yung right-hand side? Yes, both. Kapag mali yung isang side or false yung isang side, hindi magiging true yung buong inequality because it has two sides. It's a two-sided inequality. So that means both sides have to be satisfied. And whenever we use both, okay, or when we consider both, that means an and, right? Yes. So it's a union. Remember, kapag or, union. Kapag, kapag or, union. Kapag and, intersection. So dahil both, and yon. Kaya intersection. So let me show how to get the intersection. Basta when you have two-sided inequality, intersection talaga yan. Para hindi na lang malito. So here's the solution, the graphical solution for case 1. Less than or equal, so kasama yung 8. Greater than or equal to 16, kasama yung 16. Here's the graphical solution for case 2. Between -4 and 28, so -4 up to 28, but not including the endpoint, so hollow circle, here's solid circle, hollow point, solid point. And then we get the intersection. So how do we get the intersection of the two graphs or the two intervals? Paano nating makukuha yung intersection? Imagine perpendicular lines intersecting those sets. You look where those perpendicular lines intersect both. Kasi both nga to, no? And. Okay, huwag kayong malito. Dito sa case 1, naka-or siya. Yung case 2, naka-end. Pero when you get the final, you get the intersection of the answer for case 1 with the answer for case 2. So, imagine perpendicular lines where they intersect both. Those are the solutions in the intersection. Sila yung i-include sa intersection. So that means dito, no, parehong nai-intersect. Dito isa lang ang nai-intersect, sa gitna isa lang ang nai-intersect. Dito rin. So to intersect both, it has to be between -4 to 8 and 16 to 28. But the question is -4 part of the solution? Eh, di ba? Sama si -4. No, yes. You cannot include -4 because -4 is not in one. For it to be part of the intersection, it has to be in both. It's only here, but not on the upper one. In fact, when you drop a perpendicular, it will only intersect the other set kasi may hole dito eh. Similarly, we do not include 28 in the intersection because it only belongs to one. But we can include 8 because 8 is not only here, but also here. So it's 16. But not in between dahil wala na ditong intersection. So in set interval notation, -4 open to 8 closed, union, 16 closed, open 28. Sir, bakit naging union? Diba kinuha natin yung intersection? Minsan nalilito yung students dyan eh. Bakit naging union yung final answer? Paki-explain nga. Baka malito kasi yung iba. Why did we use the union symbol to write down our final answer? This is some of the answers. Pinagsama po yung two sides, then di po kasama yung nasa middle. Okay, at least you have an idea there. But, okay. Okay, share screen ko itong isa. Okay, ito yung kanina. So, ito yung solution sa case 1. Ito yung solution sa case 2. Okay? Or what? Ano man, kanino man yun. Ano? So, the final answer is intersection, di ba? So, let's call the first set A. Let's call the second set B. So, the final answer is the intersection of the two sets. If you draw the intersection of the two sets, ito sila. Ito siya. This one now, in red, is the final answer. So you forget now about the rest, and you just try to write it as an answer or in interval form. So disregard na natin yung dalawa. Kasi interested lang tayong isulat yung final answer natin. But to be able to write those two intervals, hindi mo naman pwedeng gamitin yung -4 to 28 kasi nga, yun nga, sabi kanina, may break, di ba? Hindi kasama yung gitna. So to be able to indicate that, we need to use the union. The final answer is a union of two disjoint intervals A and B. Disjoint intervals. So magiging -4, 8, open at -4, closed at 8, union 16, closed 28, open. So huwag kayong malito, hindi tayo nag-union. Nag-intersection tayo. Pero once we get the intersection, we have to write it down. Siyempre, di ba? Kailangan namang picture lang yung final answer mo. But to be able to write it down, you have to combine the two intervals there. And the only way to do that in mathematics is to use the union, which means combine the two. Okay? I hope that is clear. Go back. Okay, now, I will give an exercise. Seat work muna tayo, hindi to graded. By the way, paalala, anytime a graded seat work may be given during at the beginning, in the middle, or at the end of class. Or bago mag-end yung class, seat works may be unannounced. So they may come as a surprise seat work. Pwede rin minsan, ina-announce ko na kaagad or makikita nyo na lang sa canvas, doon sa to-do list nyo, susulpot na lang yun doon. So huwag kang magulat kung biglang, ay nag-seat work pala kahapon graded. Sir, can I make up? Bawal ang make up pag seat work. Kasi ano lang yan 4 points lang yata yon. Hindi kagaya ng quizzes, no? Saka yung long test. So pwedeng mag-make up quiz, mag-make up long test, pero hindi pwedeng mag-make up kapag seat work. So you have to be present. Kung ma-absent ka, whether justifiable yung absence mo or hindi, wala talagang make up. Kasi ang seat work ay, sabi ko nga, in-include ko to prompt students to attend class as much as possible. Okay, let's see, using those basic concepts, you can answer this inequality. Okay, I'll give you 10 minutes, and after I will show this. Okay. Anyone got an answer? Anyone finished? Okay, sige. How do you, okay, somebody give me an answer. Let's see. How do you first convert this inequality to one that gets rid of the outer absolute value? Here we have an absolute value outside. So if you forget, okay, if you look at, if you call this your expression E, okay, call that your E, then you can first think of it as absolute value of an expression less than 5, right? Makes things look much simpler. What makes it complicated is the presence of an absolute value inside. But if you look at it this way, it's easy to see that, okay, this is a type 1, but type 1 inequality where you have a less than. So that means the expression must be between -5 and 5, right? Pwede mong gawin ganito yan. And then you write back the expression itself after. But para hindi masyadong sabay-sabay, what I'll do is I'll take the two cases. Case 1, the left-hand side of the inequality. So the left-hand side, the expression, this is case 1, greater than -5. So you put back the expression, and then you solve. Transpose, and you have that. But the good thing with this problem is you don't have to proceed further with case 1, since notice the one side is what we call this, a negative number. The other side is always a non-negative number. Can you tell me what the answer is to this inequality? Ano ang solution set nito? Really? No solution? Kung less than yan, walang solution. Dahil positive ito or non-negative siya, pwede siyang 0, di ba? Positive. Tapos yung left-hand side ay negative. At hindi pwedeng ang positive ay less than negative. Ngayon, ang kinalabasan nito after transposition is greater than. Can you tell me what is the solution set of that? See some answers. True for all x. So what does that mean? What is your solution set, Mr. Rosales? True for all x. So x is the set of all. Yes, negative infinity to infinity. What, again, the left-hand side is a positive, the right-hand side is a negative, and you want the positive to be greater than the negative. And that is always true, no matter what x is. In other words, r, or yun nga, negative infinity to positive infinity, or you can write all reals, all real numbers. So that leaves case 1. So perhaps we really have to work out the other case. So the other case is this one, less than 5. Running absolute value, tinanggal na natin. So E is less than 5, case 2. Let's put back the expression. And solve as usual. And this time we have something to really solve. Hindi kagaya kanina, R lang talaga, di ba? Upon observation. So again, you have to consider what type of an inequality this is. Type 1 because of the less than. So again, it should be between -7, 7. Inside siya. And then you solve each side, or you can do it simultaneously. Just subtract 1 from all sides. And then you have between -8 to 6. However, there are two cases. So you have to get the intersection. However, since all real numbers, yung isa, if you look at the real line here, -8, 6, the first one is all real numbers. The second one is the open interval from -8 to 6. And if you take the intersection, it will still be -8 to 6. Yan lang may intersection. So your solution set is -8, 6. Of course, it would have been a different answer if this one is not the set of all real numbers. Then in which case, kailangan mo, kagaya kanina, di ba nagkaroon tayo ng ganito? Tama ba yun? Isang ganito. Isang case. Nagkaroon tayo sa gitna, di ba? So meron ka talagang kukunin na intersection for your final answer. But if one is the set of all real numbers, no problem, because whatever solution you get for the other case, that's it. Basta R dito. But of course, kailangan ipakita nyo muna sa solution nyo yung case 1 na R talaga yung sagot dyan. Otherwise, you lose credit. This were, say, 10-point question, I would give 4 points for each case and then 2 points for the final part of your solution, which is the combination of the two. Of course, you should show the graph for me to know that you really understand how to get the intersection. Lalo na sa departmentals, parang ano yata, puro show your solution. But don't worry sa ating long tests or quizzes, may multiple choice din. Meron din sigurong ilan lang naman, 1 or 2 na file upload where you have to show your solution. How did you get -8? Balikan natin. Nag-subtract lang tayo ng 1 from all sides of the previous inequality. So subtract 1, subtract 1, subtract 1, -7 minus 1. Yun. Then cancel yung 1. 7 minus 1, 6. Any questions so? So we have, I believe, just 17 minutes. So hindi ko naman siguro magamit lahat yon. Let me just introduce the next section or chapter actually sa book. So tapos na ang module 1, in other words. So dahil tapos na ang module 1, tingnan natin kung ano yung kailan yung quiz 1. Let me show. When you go to your canvas, you'll see it in the to-do list. Yan. 10:15 pa. Ano ba itong quiz mo? Let's go back to the syllabus. Iba kasi yung format ng calculus ko eh. Nalilito ako minsan. Look at the syllabus. Pati yung naming ng kung kailan siya tinatawag na long test. Midterms kasi sa natin eh. Yung sa calculus, long test lang ang tawag. So mapansin natin sa syllabus natin, after module 1, meron tayong dapat quiz. Okay, 30 points. Medyo dinelay ko yung tawag dito, quiz 1, nakalagay doon Feb 15. So ano yon? Ano ba ngayon? 8 tayo, di ba? Supposed to be next week. Para din may time kayo mag-review. Okay, but we have to finish up to module 3 because after module 3, siyempre may quiz pa tayo sa module 2, 40 points. Pag natapos sa module 2. And then sa module 3, problem, I'm not sure whether to just give quiz here up to just some portion of the module because right after quiz 3, we have the departmentals. Or a second option just to give quizzes for modules 1 and 2, but I have to increase the number of items. Can we have a poll? Just for me to know. Oh, you're not. Try to leave this one. Lang ha? Hindi ako maka-create ng poll. Or logged in from another device already logged. Wait lang, tingnan natin. Okay, yung 4-point activity sa Canvas, inan-publish ko lang. Feb 8 kasi ngayon. So, sa Feb 10 yon pa rin. Tama ba, Feb 10? Medyo inedit ko lang yung time slot na nakalagay doon. Pero mamaya ipapublish ko ulit. So, there's a quiz this coming Thursday. Ilagay ko siya at the beginning of the class. So, pagdating dun sa quiz, hindi kayo kailangan mag-record yung screen ninyo. But, the catch is, sinabi ko na yata ito kanina or sa previous class ko yata yun, you cannot go to the next item if you haven't submitted your first item. And once you have submitted the first item, you cannot go back to that. But you are not required to record your screen and you are not required to log into Zoom. Well, parang asynchronous na rin ang dating. Pero yung time, class period. After which, we will still have class. So saka tayo magla-log in sa Zoom. But when it comes to the departmentals, you have to record your screens and also not just your screen, but you taking the tests, also showing your work area, your table particularly. And you can do that in Zoom, I think. Hindi ko pa nasubukan where Zoom records both you and your screen. And I will be sending or I'll be creating a survey form sort of that where you can post the link to your recorded sessions or your screen recording or Zoom recording. And then, saan na nga tayo yung sa test, no? Sa poll, no? Let me see if I can create one now. Let me just end this session. Please reconnect or rejoin for the poll. Recorded kasi to. So, end ko muna siya. Ayaw kasing mag-poll dahil recorded daw ako logged in daw ako sa another device na i-log out ko na. So, let me see if this